Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 195 in the book of Genesis. So we've been reviewing some huge themes in Genesis, and today we're kind of trying to talk about some of the best of the 200 days. The title for today is Genesis is a sex book. Now, it's a sexual book. Surprisingly, a large amount about Genesis talks about it. In fact, I would even say that everything you need to know about human sexuality is in the book of Genesis. So the Bible talks about, and specifically Genesis talks about, the invention of humans as sexual beings. It talks about the walled garden where sexuality is meant to thrive, that is marriage. It even talks about negative things, about sexual assault, about sexual deviance. It talks about adultery. It talks about polygamy. Also talks about faithfulness. And it even, in a certain way, I think it even talks about abortion. The point is, it's very important to God, his creation, his blessing, and therefore his protection. He puts a protection over it, that is his rules. Now, misdone sexuality is often a road to destruction because it goes against, God's ways. So if we go out of bounds, generally there are consequences. So if you, dear listener, have done your sexuality perfectly, then you can just stop listening. But likely, in fact, I'm sure of it, you have not, and maybe you're currently not. Maybe your life is mired in porn or adultery or stealing sexual benefits that are not designed for you. So if your sexual life is a mess, then I think it would behoove you to pay attention to what Genesis has to say, or what God has to say in Genesis. So misdone sexuality is often the very road, because of the destruction, because of the pain, that points one back to the Savior. It might be the very thing that causes you or contributes to you saying, man, I need a Savior. I need help. Help me, God. All right, so Genesis is a book about sex. It's also a book about temptation, and more specifically, how to specifically deal with it. I'm reminded of the passage in Genesis chapter 4 where Cain and Abel give a sacrifice to God. But for Cain and his offering, the Lord had no regard. Cain was angry, his face fell, but the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face fallen? Then he gives him a way out of this. He says, if you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. So it's one of the sweetest moments where the Lord gives Cain a heads up. He kind of takes him up to 10,000 feet and says, do you see what's happening here? Do you see sin crouching at the door? It wants to win. He's trying to put him into a point of situational awareness and tell him, you are being hunted and you can fix this. You have a choice. You have a way out of this. So with the Lord, I can be master and ruler over sin. So every sin has a way out. Every sin has a way back, a way of escape. It's the way it says it in 1 Corinthians 10:13. In other words, Cain, you have everything you need to do this right. Now, it doesn't end well with Cain, and a lot of the stories in Genesis are actually stories that end poorly, which are good lessons for us all. And it says, then Cain, this is 4:16, then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord. He went away from the presence of the Lord. Oh, don't let that ever be said about us. So we can raise our antenna with the lesson of Cain and say, we are being hunted. And where is my escape hatch? Where is my way of rescue? How can I move towards the Lord rather than away from the Lord? Okay. So let's say you're a person who hasn't done well in the area of temptation or maybe in sex. Well, the good news and the other big theme of Genesis is it is a book about rescue, or at least the start of rescue. So the consequences of the fall, as you and I all know, they're not pretty. Rebellion, the curse comes down and has consequences of sin and of death and sickness and aging, increased difficulty, breach of relationships in marriage, in the world, in the church. And in a sense, we walk around, as we walked here today, we walk around in fall land. And we're all returning to dust and it doesn't stop with the grave. So this sets up the fall from way back when, day one. The fall sets up the need for a bloody rescue operation, and there's a redeemer that starts in the mind of God. So God invented this. That's the coolest thing, is the invention, and then you can kind of see, after you know the end, you can see, oh, this is how it starts. So he invents Israel. He starts to credit faith with Abraham and makes that count in God's economy. Now, this was very expensive for God. It cost him everything, and it took thousands of years to set up. So here's one of my favorite insights into Genesis, is how or when did God know that Jesus was going to go to the cross? There's this moment in the garden. It's after the fall. They're wearing fig leaves. They're hiding themselves, and God is walking in the garden. And he either turns in or he turns out. And if he turns out, he walks away, and Jesus lives, in a sense. So he's walking in the cool of the day. God knows all that happened. He's not surprised, and yet he turns into man, knowing that when he turns into man, that a whole rescue plan is going to happen, and Jesus is going to be the end result of it. So that moment in the garden with the falls and the figs is the moment when God, no, he probably knew before this, but certainly he knew at this point, because the rescue plan starts immediately with the nation of Israel. All right, so he already knows and yet pursues us. And I think the teaching point for us is we should feel loved and pursued, seen and valued. All right, so as we see here, Genesis is a tremendously practical book. It's a book about sex, it's a book about temptation, and it's a book about rescue. And I'm so glad that you're here to consider it, because all the tough stuff is here. And yet, all the way through this, God's good character is gifting us, and he's hanging in there with us during the first fall, and then maybe even the falls that you and I may have on this particular day. So however we come to it, I think Genesis points us towards what I call the two-word prayers, which is help me, save me, I'm sorry, I'm a mess. Maybe that's you today. Thanks for listening.